Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine, you're slowly waking up from a really deep, medically induced sleep.
Right.
But that first thing you feel, your first conscious sensation, it isn't just like seeing the ceiling. Instead, it's this vivid, multi-sensory thing happening, something huge anchoring itself inside you.
Wow.
Today, we're diving right into that. It's the incredible first-person account from Professor Elzubair Bashir Taha waking up after heart surgery and this spaceship anchorage experience he had. Well, it really challenges our main scientific ideas about consciousness.
Profoundly, yeah.
So our mission here is to pull out the key insights from this really fascinating case study, give you a kind of shortcut to understanding this deep mystery of the mind.
And what's so striking, I think, is just the richness of Professor Taha's subjective journey. I mean, he describes it vividly, feeling like a huge spaceship or something anchoring with bolts and nuts to a huge kind of steel-based structure.
That's incredibly specific.
It is. And it came with this loud clamor, he says, of two huge steel structures frictioning. He felt scary, but also this deep, wonder-struck awe. Yet somehow, he was an outside observer, not completely disembodied. No control at all.
And this was before he could feel his body or move.
Exactly. Before full body sensation or movement came back online. Now, this kind of thing isn't totally unique. Other patients sometimes report, floating or feeling heavy or like they're being reassembled as their brain sort of reboots.
So assemble, huh?
Yeah. But it really throws up this immediate, profound question for us.
Yeah.
What exactly is that observer that's experiencing all this before the body's even fully back,
That observer part is, well, it's truly fascinating, isn't it? If the brain itself is just rebooting, who or what is watching the reboot happen? His account really pushes things. So, okay, how do our leading scientific theories of consciousness even try to make sense of something like this? Something so profound and, well, paradoxical, especially that feeling of the experience.
The qualia, yeah.
Right, the qualia, that raw subjective quality, like the feeling of red or the actual sound of that clamor he described.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, a lot of theories do struggle here, especially with what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness.
Which isn't just how the brain does it.
Exactly. It's why does it feel like anything at all to be that system? So, take predictive coding, for instance. It suggests our brain is basically a prediction machine, constantly guessing reality based on past experiences.
Okay, makes sense.
But Professor Taha points out, look, he had no prior experience of this nature. So where would the prediction for that specific novel sensation come from? And crucially, predictive coding doesn't really explain that bystanding observer just watching it all happen.
Right, so it describes the brain's mechanics maybe, but not the feeling of being the one experiencing it. What about a global workspace theory? Does that get us any closer?
Well, global workspace theory, or GWT, kind of imagines consciousness like a central stage or a spotlight in a theater. Information gets broadcast from this workspace to the rest of the brain.
Okay, a central hub.
Yeah, it can describe the mechanics of the rebooting process, perhaps, different parts coming online and integrating. But like PC, the actual subjective consciousness experience remains unexplained. It gives you the architecture, but not the phenomenal feeling of that spaceship.
I see the distinction there. It's the how of the processing, but not the what it's like to be doing the processing. And then there's integrated information theory, IIT.
Precisely. IIT tries to quantify consciousness. It uses a measure called phi, which is basically about how much information a system integrates, how its parts are interconnected and aware of each other, forming this single conscious whole.
So more integration, maybe more consciousness?
Sort of, yes. It might describe Taha's reassembly as phi increasing, but again, Professor Taha himself argues it does not sufficiently explain my subjective depersonalized bystander. Or, and this is key, how and why does qualia arise from what seems to be a physical process? He's right back at that hard problem.
Yeah, we keep bumping up against this subjective observer, don't we? This is already incredibly thought-provoking, just seeing how these theories grapple with it. But what Professor Taha dixed, well, that really opens up another dimension. He actually looked for answers beyond the brain itself.
And this raises a really important question for all of us, I think. What if consciousness isn't just something the brain produces? What if it's more complicated?
So where did he look?
Professor Taha himself explores non-brain-centric views. He found some resonance in the Quranic concept of fuad. Now, that's often translated as heart or maybe intellect, but it's described more deeply as the innermost core of the heart, something connected to divine perception and awareness.
Interesting. So how does that connect to his experience?
From this perspective, his experience wasn't just a brain rebooting. It was seen as a profound moment of separation of two huge worlds of soul and body and their rebinding.
Wow, soul and body.
Yeah, like two huge ontologically distinct machines, meaning fundamentally different kinds of things in their very being, carefully reuniting my unique personhood. The idea here is that this fuad consciousness, let's call it, and the body or brain, they're distinct but uniquely connected, like one is made for the other.
Ontologically distinct, so separate realities almost.
In a sense, yeah. And this perspective does offer a pretty compelling explanation for that persistent bystander self he felt. It suggests that maybe that observer is a distinct consciousness, a distinct entity interacting with the physical brain.
So pulling this all together then, what's the big takeaway from Professor Taha's incredible journey here? It really feels like his experience shows that maybe no single scientific theory we have right now, from predictive coding to IIT, fully captures the subjective reality of being conscious, especially that elusive feeling of just being an observer.
I think that's right. The persistence of this hard problem, explaining the qualia, explaining that distinct sense of self, it really highlights that maybe our current scientific models are, inherently incomplete.
Right.
And exploring concepts like fuad, whether you see it spiritually or philosophically, it underscores the need for a much broader conversation, one that maybe integrates these philosophical or even spiritual insights alongside the neuroscience we're doing.
And Professor Taha himself, he concludes his experiences thus far only vaguely explained, even with these, really profound concepts. So it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? You might ask yourself, is consciousness some fundamental distinct property that interacts with our physical brains? Or is its true nature just something beyond what we can currently grasp?
The deep dive continues.